Peter's first attack against the Overseer is to create a stone case that would limit him. The green-eyed drone, however, does not let itself get trapped so easily. It uses a spray of acid to melt the cage bars in a matter of seconds. I decided to join the Overseer by putting some pressure on Peter with a few of the water spells that I practiced with Luna, which quickly force our enemies into focusing all their efforts on defensive tactics. Just when it seems like we are finally gaining the upper hand in this battle, the Overseer's drone gets caught in a semi-transparent box similar to the ones we were used against me and Flower at the beginning of the fight. My lord, you shouldn't overexert yourself like this, Peter tells the King of the Underground. I promise I have it all under control. I'm fine, the King of the Underground says in a somewhat tired tone, but is still defending himself from Flower's attacks with this barrier. Don't worry about me, just focus on dealing with Barry as quickly as possible. As long as it's just a small box containing one drone, I can handle it without putting too much strain on my defensive barriers. I'm still very confused as to why the King of the Underground decided to let us live. Wasn't he trying to kill us before? This is so weird. As you wish, sire, Peter says. Then he turns towards the Overseer, starting to cast the freezing spell that he used against Flower and me when we were also being trapped by the king. Since I pretty much guessed which spell he was going to use before he even started moving his hand, I easily managed to cast the spell in reverse and to dispel it before he could finish his motions. That being said, there is no way for him to dispel the box itself, so the drone is still tapped, even if it's no longer in mortal danger. Unfortunately, the Overseer protocol is unable to free itself from his captivity or cast spells outside of the box without the use of experimental features, the green-eyed drone says. The Overseer apologizes for the inconvenience and hopes that the current circumstances will not negatively impact the rating you will give at the end of the month's service. Don't worry, Overseer, I got you covered, I say. No matter what spells he casts while you're inside the box, I'm pretty confident I can dispel it. As I'm saying these words, Peter gives me one long look and just stands there for 10 seconds contemplating on what I've said. What's the matter, Peter? I said. Did you give up already? No, but I think it's safe to say that I might have been underestimating you a little until now. After thinking things over for a short while, I realized that you are for all intents and purposes, a mage and a generalist in this realm, and maybe I should start treating you as such. Tell me, Barry, have you ever seen a fight between Brynhorn and Azarius? Yeah, I did see a few of those, I say. Brynhorn always used to insist on me coming to watch his official matches while I was still apprenticing under him. Bryn begins to say, then he interrupts himself as he closes his eyes, start to massage his forehead with his fingers. Never mind, I don't care if you actually were the man's apprentice or not. The point I was trying to make is that whenever two generals fight, they have a certain way of doing battle that is not comparable to any other kind of mage fights. Do you know what I'm talking about? I mean, yeah, it would have been pretty hard to not see the difference, I say. Good, Peter says. I only had the opportunity to see one of their duels due to how insanely hard it is to avoid the permission to leave Varathia as an all-Indra citizen, but that one duel will remain imprinted in my mind forever. While Peter is talking, I can slowly feel the whole world beginning to spin around me as if I've been gulped down an entire bottle of dwarven ale. As a former apprentice of Brynhorn, I'm sure that you will immediately recognize the famous battle I'm about to recreate before your eyes. Let us see if you can live up to your old mentor's teaching. My sense of balance has been completely thrown off. I feel like I'm about to puke. I didn't even know you could have these sensations in the immaterial plane of existence such as this. That being said, Peter has been kind enough to notify me in advance of what spell he's going to use against me, so I'm not planning to betray his expectation. Recalling the exact spells that Brynhorn cast to get himself out of this situation in one of the duels against Azarius, I began to make flames come out of my hand and use my palms like hot irons to burn both of my cheeks for a few seconds. As I struggled to endure the excruciating pain from my burnt face, I quickly conjured two bolters in the air on both sides of me and used them to smack myself in the face from both sides right on the burn marks. After I'm done with that, I create a bucket of freezing cold water above my head and let it drop on top of me, drenching my whole body in an icy liquid. While I'm still trembling from the cold, I point towards Peter with my right hand and spin my index finger counterclockwise. When this is so difficult, how do these people study? Like, what sort of fucking mind do you have to keep all this shit in your head? Fucking hell, I spin my index finger counterclockwise while I imagine some invisible earplugs dropping from his ears. Outstanding, Peter says with what appears to be genuine amazement in his voice as he's slowly clapping while I'm still trying to stop my body from shaking violently. I was half joking when I told you to live up to your old mentor's teaching, but I never expected you to go this far. You actually reproduced every single of Brynhorn's spells from the beginning of that battle, including the rare variant of his dispelling technique that he used to get rid of Azarius' protection against his own sonic attack. He used to get rid of Zarius' protection against his. Oh shit! This is it's a Brynhorn did upgrade the technique. He made a technique that would allow him to dispel the like fucking protective techniques from his opponents, because Azarius uses the sonic fucking attacks. We have seen him use it before. Yes, well, I was the one who taught him that dispelling technique. After all, I was trying my best to sound tough, even though I'm still trembling like crazy from the cold. I must admit that I didn't think you would go through with it, even if you knew the spells that you needed to cast, Peter says. Seeing you inflict so much damage upon yourself without hesitating in the same way that Brynhorn did in that match makes me wonder if some of his craziness rubbed off on you, if it was in fact the other way around. Well, it's not like I had much choice in the matter, I answered him, having finally stopped my trembling. The sonic attack you did just now was too high-pitched to be perceived by our ears, but its effects are almost impossible to dispel unless you are a highly skilled, specialized white mage. That is probably one of the reasons why Azarius enjoys using sonic spells as much. They're incredibly versatile and ridiculously hard to counter through normal means. Brynhorn might not have given me much reason to genuinely look up to him during the time we have spent together, but I say that this one particular way he chose to counter the Azarius spell was nothing short of genius. It was indeed, Peter says, looking as if he were reminiscing over a long past. Felt so stupid when I saw it at the time, yet it was so effective in its simplicity. Why bother with countering the effects of a completely complicated sound pressure spell that directly targets your inner ear and messes up your sense of balance, when you can just use tried and true, age-old methods that dwarves have been using to get out of their drunk supper for hundreds of years. I have to say, that fight was truly a sight to behold. I'm really glad to see how well you two are getting along, the King of the Underground says loudly from a distance, as he is still busily building barriers around himself to defend from Flower, who is attacking from all possible angles, trying to find a weak spot in his defenses. Maybe you could try it just a little, but maybe you could hurry it up just a little, Peter. I can barely hold off this ethereal girl on my own with how weak my aura is in this realm. Man, holy shit, his aura must be insanely strong in the real world. I mean, we've seen it, but it must be like on another level, dude. You must not be trying hard enough. Surely you don't want to end up fighting Barry and Flower and the Overseer all at the same time, do you? No, my king, Peter says. I will try my best to hasten things on my end. And how exactly are you planning to do that, I ask Peter. Just to be clear, your trick with the invisible earplugs don't work a second time if you want to cast that sonic spell again. Better be prepared to dunk yourself in cold water afterwards. Have you already forgotten that we are supposed to be reenacting one of the battles between Brynhorn and Azarius, Peter says. We've barely even recreated the first few seconds of the fight so far. This is much more so much more that we need to do. You've seen how far I'm willing to go to reproduce Brynhorn's exact spell from the fight, and you still want to continue, I say. I'm having a hard time figuring out if you're simply being stupidly brave or just plain stupid. Well, and I'm having a hard time seeing how you are so confident in your victory when you should already know all too well who won the fight that we are now copying, Peter says. I give you a hint. The same person who's won every single time since those two started having their duels. Just because we're doing a reenactment doesn't mean I can't go off script just a tiny bit. I say, don't worry, you'll get to see the source of my confidence soon. Let's see it then, Peter says, and then he begins to attack me in the same way that Azarius attacked Brynhorn all those years ago. Counter by doing the exact same thing the Brynhorn did in the battle against Azarius, use my own spells instead of copying Brynhorn in order to throw Peter off. Begin by copying Brynhorn's spells, we'll switch to my own spells later. Yeah, let's do that. That's the only one seemed like it would work. I'm now finding myself surrounded by hundreds or so Manticore, which are flying around me from all directions, including directly below me. I already know from the battle between Brynhorn and Azarius, the majority of these are supposed to be illusions, but in the original fight, 5 of the winged lions were real, and Azarius were also hiding amongst them. Shapeshifted as a Manticore while waiting for the ideal moment to strike. Just like in the battle that we are copying, Peter has managed to successfully cast an illusion spell, a summoning spell, a shapeshifting spell almost simultaneously without giving me much time to react. The fact that he managed to cast all 3 spells without making any movements at all caught me off guard completely. He must have been secretly preparing the spells while I was being distracted by our previous conversation. Unfortunately, while I was initially able to track which one was the real Manticore and which were the illusions, it's gotten harder and harder for me to tell them apart as they have been shuffling their position constantly from the past 20 seconds. Similarly, what Azarius did against Brynhorn, Peter is in no hurry to attack me because he knows the more time passes, the more I will doubt myself on which of the flying monsters I need to defend myself from and which I need to ignore. The spell the Brynhorn used to get out of this predicament was complicated, and I've never had the opportunity to practice them before, but they're the best option I've got. At least I know the theory behind them, so I just need to do my best to figure out the magical flow pattern based on the knowledge I already have.